Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, a space for spiritual entrepreneurs who refuse to settle for anything less than their purpose. I am your host, Lauren Perlingi. After surviving a near-death experience and being declared gone for 3 minutes, I woke up with a mission to help women turn self-sabotage into self-compassion and fear into fuel. Here, we're going to dive into raw conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories designed to help you break free from old patterns, claim your voice, and build a business that lights up your soul. If you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold, you're in the right place. This is where misfits rise into their power. Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren Perlingi, an intuitive human design business guide and trauma-informed healer, helping spiritual entrepreneurs, leaders, and seekers return to the truth of who they are so that they can build a life and business that honors their energetic blueprint. Today, I have an absolute honor to sit with a woman who has the pure presence of this ancient wisdom wrapped up in this pure essence energy. And you're going to see it if you're watching this over on YouTube, or you're just going to hear it through our whole conversation. Ambika is a scholar, speaker, and astrologer and holistic health expert. Welcome. So happy to have you here with us.
It's a pleasure. And thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Of course. So I'm not going to go into, we have a lot of beautiful things that we're going to talk about today. And I want to hear it from your perspective and your voice take us through your story. Like, what was that moment or series of moments that led you to the path of where you are right now?
Whew. Well, I'm 66, so it's a long path. As far as the cosmos, when I was a little kid, probably around 2, I became interested in the stars, planets, the cosmos. And then as far as meditation, which has definitely been the foundation cornerstone for me, started at age 6 when I was introduced to meditation. So I learned to sit quietly with all the kids from first grade, which is where I was, through 6th grade for an hour once a week on Wednesday mornings at school. And we also sang together. So that's where the voice and singing came into it. So now, as I look, and I believe that destiny is where we're standing right now. I don't see destiny as something in the future. But if I say, okay, this is my destiny, I look back, I see voice, I see meditation, I see healthy choices. Because when I was little, I claimed to my family, I don't really like what we're eating. So I was born this way, and that's what led me into holistic health. And now I bring it all together because I feel like people went from wearing stress as a badge of honor to wearing challenged emotions as a badge of honor. And so this is the progression and what I'm speaking about and sharing, which is our own mythic alchemy of learning how to look at what's the story we built up until this destiny moment right now. And then how do we want to launch from there into our future?
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's a journey, right? Like you said. So you have spent over decades studying meditation and, sound medicine and astrology and spiritual physiology, philology. And what was like that getaway or that first like awakening into your path, I should say, that like that all clicked for you?
Some of us are really aware of what we bring in to this lifetime. And as a teacher and speaker and philosopher of the Far Eastern philosophy, I do believe that we've all been here before. I also see that we won this human lifetime kind of like winning a lottery. And I think a lot of people don't honor it that way. As a lifelong yogi, uh, and someone who continues on the path of Advaita Vedanta, which is one of the paths. Really, what I see as my personal quest is who am I? What am I doing here? And what's my purpose? I think that's really true for all of us. but what we really are. And we see this in all these different philosophies. We see this and we hear it about we're spiritual beings, we're having a human experience. And if we can really look at it that I won the lottery and so did everybody else, that means everybody that does all of the things, the good, what we don't think is so good, what we might even deem as ugly, everybody came in with an equanimity of what we'll name in the pairs of opposites of good, of I'm going to use the E word, evil, of positive, of negative, of on, of off, of I like it, I don't like it. And that's when we can back up from that and we can see that we're really the witness and we're having this experience. We've seen measures in things like let's just take pain, physical pain.
Mhm.
Years ago, the scientific community decided to try meditation techniques with people who were suffering from physical pain. And they came to realize rather quickly that when the person experiencing this could back up and be the witness of it, the pain threshold went down instantly 50%. So we know that when we're the witness and we're non reactive, we're not creating trauma. So, what is trauma? Trauma is re reaction to memory.
Right.
Take that in. That's heavy
Right.
duty. Do we
Yeah.
all do it? Heck yeah, we do. We're human,
Right.
right? We know about forgiveness. We know about self love and self esteem. Yet, so many people are still being bombarded with here, take this, buy this, try this, eat this, do this. This will make you happy. This will make you well. Will it? We have to learn using our own intuition how to make better choices. And if we can slow down and we can back up and we can become the witness, then indeed we are able to.
Yeah. And you speak about intuition so beautifully, and I see it all over. It's like, oh, come learn about your intuition. Oh, come learn about your intuition. And I'm like, oh, God, like it's just one more program. It's one more thing. It's one more. And I feel like through my own journey, I realized I've always been able to listen to my intuition. It's just, again, like you said, I feel like for the longest part of my life, I should say, I wore that badge of honor of trauma. And it was always, oh, I have trauma. And I would use that as an excuse of stopping me to heal and or being the observer. Now I'm able to, like you said, it's deep, it's a lot. I mean, I'm not saying I do this all the time, but you know I'm so much better at it now that I can, if I'm in a conversation or there's something conflict going on, and like with just say like my husband or my daughter, for she's going to be 6, she's like my biggest teacher of like, oh my god, all of the patterns, all of the all of the things that like I'm trying working on, that I can feel reactive. And if I don't, if I just take a step back and I just say nothing or do nothing or just sit there, or I'm just observing of like, oh, this is about them, this is not about me, and then that whole cycle stops. So can you kind of speak? I feel like this is a huge topic that, you
It
know,
absolutely is, Lauren.
yeah,
And here's the clincher. The first reaction is for free. You're a human being. You
yeah,
react. If you don't think monks and seasoned meditators and whomever you deem as high and holy, if you think they're not human and they're not having reactive moments, you're fooling yourself. The key is they notice. So, our first most important thing is to let that reaction happen. It's okay. You might have to go back and heal things as a result of it. It's not always so easy to keep your lips shut, but we have to remember that the voice is super powerful. And so if we put it into words and use the resonance of the chest, which holds our lungs and our physical heart and our energetic heart. If you can hold that back, kudos, power to you. But if you react, then the real key, because that first reaction is human, is to not re-react. That's where we fall into it. I'm not blaming anybody. We do it. We're human beings.
Right. Yeah.
But as soon as we can get a handle on it, so many people come to me, Lauren, and they ask about maybe an ex relationship. Could be business, could be love, could be family from the past that all of a sudden is popping up in their mind again. I'll tell you, during Mercury retrograde, it happens a lot. Just saying, as an astrologer,
Yeah.
I can map the patterns. Also, during Scorpio moon phase, I also see it a lot.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not talking just about that time of year, I'm talking about every month. And we have to also understand that thousands of thoughts go through the mind. I said the mind, it's not in your head, it's external. It's feeding you stuff and you're receiving it through what you're perceiving as you, which is really the ego. So we have to watch it. You see, the thing doing the reacting is the ego. That's part of the mind. Understanding this anatomy can often help some people, not everybody, because we're trained from little children to say I, me, and use a capital I to represent that. But if you can start thinking of I as a little I and the big I as being unified, unification, omnipresence that you already are a part of, that can sometimes help some people.
Yeah.
Look, if you've been hurt really, really intensely, I'm not saying you can just say, okay, that was it's a memory. I can let it go. Yeah, you're going to need help and love and support to work on it. But where is that medicinal quality? A lot of it is in the voice. And we have to understand, how does thought end up being something that comes out of my mouth? So if we think of it this way, a thought travels in from the mind, we catch it in our awareness, and then it goes down, it mixes with the energy of the chest, of the heart, and the breath, because that's how we make sound. And then it comes up and out our throat chakra. That's when we're actually making it indelible. So some great teachers, including one of mine, used to say, if you want to change a thought, think the opposite. I know it sounds really easy, but it takes work, because that means every time we have that negative thought, and those little buggers, they like to keep rolling around and showing back up, showing back up. And you might notice it when you're doing certain actions. So, for instance, when you're letting the body kind of go on automatic, like cleaning or folding laundry or preparing food, you might notice these thoughts coming up.
Right.
And so it's a good habit and a good practice to do something positive before you get into those actions, like listening to positive music or positive words on a podcast, to keep you focused on that rather than letting those kind of surface, because they will surface when the body starts going on automatic. Now, a meditator sits in silence and watches thoughts. Meditation is not about focusing on something in particular. Sure, you can have an intention, but during meditation, it's all about emptying. And
Right.
so when a thought floats through, that's considered turbulence. And then you just watch the thought and go back to your focus, which is the breath. That's why so many people find difficulty in reaching the meditative state, but you reach it all the time. When you're cleaning, when you're folding laundry, when you're preparing food. And think about it when you're preparing food. It's really important, because then that's going in your body and nourishing you. So you're actually programming. We need to take responsibility for this. And there are exercises, there are things we can do. You can talk to someone like me. I'd love to help you with it, to identify what's going on, what do you want to change, where do you want to go.
Right. Yeah. Now, kind of going back to when you were talking about the meditation, I feel like that's also, I'm glad that you brought that up because I was literally going to ask you that question of like, can you kind of myth bust these myths that people think that, because I've been hearing a lot of like a lot of times lately that, I love meditation. I have to, I probably should do more of it, but I, I at least try at least to meditate at least once a day. It's something that I have to do for myself, right? Maybe it's longer than 5 minutes, but it's at least 5 minutes or like 10 minutes just so I can kind of clear out my energy and all of that. So but what I hear people say is I can't meditate because I feel like what society puts out there and what is told or shared or whatever is you have to listen to a guided meditation, you have to do this and you have to do that. And it's just like I can meditate when I'm driving. I'm just consciously aware of what am I thinking about? What am I thinking about? Like what's coming in? Obviously I can't write stuff down or like, some people in my the car next to me are like, who's she talking to? Like I'm just talking to myself. But can you explain what meditation is? Like, and it's not just you sitting in,
Yes.
sure, you can sit in stillness, but it could be simply in the shower. I do it a lot in the shower. So
Okay, so sitting in stillness is a practice to take you into the state of meditation. Meditation is a state of being, it's not a destination. That's the first mistake most people make. Guided meditation is mind entertainment. It's actually very difficult to get into a meditative state listening and especially watching something. The three directives for finding the state of meditation are sit up straight, close your eyes, and focus on your breathing. That's it. That's it. People don't like it. It's not entertaining, it's not fun, and there's too much noise. So then there are activities. Activities help, any physical activity. That's why runners and athletes get into the state of meditation. You talk to somebody who just came off of a competition who did amazing, amazing, whatever their thing was, whether they were performing or on a team. They can't tell you what they were thinking because they weren't. They were in the moment. That's what we call being in the flow. And uh, so some people will find it easier by a physical momentum, some sort of physical activity. Others may find it easier through knowledge. That's actually the hardest path. That's called Raja. That is a, jnana practice is knowledge, and Raja would be forceful kind of practices. The harder, more challenging. We don't like that. We want something easy and comfortable. Sure, if you're a bath taker, you've found it floating in the water. But what about nature? What about just going out in nature? I think a lot of people are denying themselves that. Just connecting with nature, the sound of birds, the sounds of insects. Uh, what about that moment right before you take a sip of water and just blessing it and saying thank you? You're mostly water. Thank the water that's coming in to refresh you. These are all ways that we can take a moment. We can find a meditative state in three breaths. There's on my blog 5 minute processes that I take you through that. And I highly recommend you give it a try because you'll learn how to do that. It's not that far from self-hypnosis. These are also kind of intertwined techniques. Meditation, of course, is a state of being, but everything is about helping you relax. The whole reason why we do yoga postures is so we feel comfortable sitting with the body, folded legs, and straight spine. Watching the breath, that's a little confusing. So there's all these things that have been developed with sound and banging on all sorts of things from crystal bowls to gongs. Uh, that's entertainment. You may slip into a meditative state. If you've ever taken a yoga class at the end, you lie down in a posture called Shavasana and you might drift off. Maybe one day you really drift off and the teacher has to come bring you back. And you may or may not be sleeping because there's a very fine edge between it. That lucid state of meditation, not so easy to find through guided meditation. You can, but a lot of times people fall asleep, and that's okay because you're probably not getting deep enough sleep at night. If you're not resting well at night, it's going to be harder. So, the first thing I would address with you, if you're feeling restless, if you're struggling with negative thought, the first thing I want to look at are the three pillars of health, which are your sleep. This is a great indicator. Your diet, and I mean the food going in your mouth, and your lifestyle diet. What's going on in your environment? What are you taking in media? These can be very, very disturbing, or they could be very, very healing. So, what are you reading? What are you doing? The two times that are the best to try and get into the state of meditation right before the sun comes up and right before the sun is fully set. So, what we call the golden hour, interesting, we call it the golden hour. These are really good times, and those would be great times to go for a walk in nature because you will. In my second book, Unfolding Happiness, I do give an intro to meditation. It is an intro to Ayurveda and also cosmology, Eastern cosmology, so that you can understand more about what's going on and approach it more from your inner child, which is the best place to learn anything.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking about your inner child, that's also another topic that I wanted to kind of ask you too. So, pretty much, let me just call you an astrologer, like since you were 5 and 6, right? I'm sure you were always like
I
really
was, but then I did study and I did get a college degree in it. So,
right. Yeah,
which
no,
not many astrologers have.
yeah, no, I was going to say, and that's why I feel like, I'm so honored to interview you because I've always been obsessed with astrology. Did I go that path? No, but it was always like I felt always connected. Like I always knew I say this, I came out of my mom and I feel like I remember, like it's just like I remember all of that.
Sure you do. Why not?
So coming from the expertise of the like for the astrology standpoint and why somebody might feel connected or they maybe they don't believe into astrology or like what are some of those like identity shifts or those stories that could really help with shaping healing or maybe even spiritual growth where people are like I don't know where to go from here or like the stories I need to first start with meditation, that's the foundation like you said, but like how can you kind of shape these stories into healing the identities and like spiritual growth
I
from
think that astrology is just that. Astrology is the merger of myth and astronomy. There was a time back in history where the astronomers were astrologers. They were explaining what they were seeing in the cosmos through myths, through stories. When we were tribal people back centuries ago, we didn't have all this media influence. The media influence was sitting around a fire at night listening to the elders tell stories.
right?
In my first, I think it was my first book, I wrote in Lilith that we are, it might have been in, yeah, it was in Lilith. We are the stories our ancestors told around the fire at night.
Wow.
Interesting, isn't it? So what I am currently doing, because look, when we were little, we learned how to be nice people through fables and myths and stories, right? I think we can still use that. I really do.
Yeah.
And so that's what the book I'm working on in production. Right now, we're working on the cover. So it's already written. And it is using myth and letting it be the alchemy that brings us healing. And then each myth that I've written then has suggestions for practices that we can do, things we can think about, we can journal about, suggestions from my years, from my decades of teaching holistic health, of what we could do for the body. But simple things, kitchen things, things that you've already got, not these extreme choices that make it very difficult, things that you can actually do or bring into your world that will help you for choices of things to eat, to put on your body, yoga postures for those of you who are interested in that, and things to think about. Now, we can with meditation focus on something before we go into it, but during it we're emptying. And I'll tell you, time and time again, it blows my mind how those moments when I'm coming out of the state of meditation, I get the aha, I get the, this is what I need to do. Sometimes I'll wait to ask or focus till right as I'm starting to feel myself come out. That's when I'll ask, okay, what do I need to do? That's how I got back into writing this book, because I had started it years ago from curriculum I had written. And I didn't want it to be curriculum. I wanted it to be in the self-enrichment area of the bookstore, but I also really wanted it to be able to amuse and heal our inner child and be something that little kids could absorb. You could read to children, but also would really help top executives and people in the workforce.
Yeah, I'm super excited for your book because I'm like, I'll make sure it's in the description box too. When it comes
Well,
out.
there's others. You just go to my website at
Yeah.
ambikadevi.com and slash books, or just go to the homepage and you can find all my books on my blog. There's free stuff on my blog. There's things you can learn. If you want to learn the basics of astrology, if you want to learn the 4 keys to a healthy diet, where I don't tell you what to eat, I teach you about all these different philosophies so that you can make better choices. It's really all about choice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Now, the people watching this, you have your shirt on that says, I'll just say this, people listening, I'm saying she has a shirt on that says Mind Tamer. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means? And yeah, tell us, what does that mean?
Mind Tamer is a moniker, is a title I have for many years. And it is because when we realize that the mind is external and that we have all the tools we need to tame it, uh, we can then be a mind tamer in training. And the more we work on it, the more we focus on it, the easier it becomes. Mind taming is meditation. It's just that if I say, okay, I'm going to talk about meditation, most people will run out of the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, I can't do it. All these excuses, that's not for me. I don't have time, really. You're meditating. Here's an example. Somebody's watching something on television,
Mhm.
on a TV, whether it's YouTube or Netflix or whatever, and they are totally engulfed in it. And you walk out into the room where they are and you call their name and they don't hear you. And you maybe even make some noise and they don't hear you. And they're still, this can happen a lot during sporting events, but it can happen during anything that's really got you. Good storytelling does it. That they're in the meditative state. They're already meditating. They're there. They're hypnotic. That zone is the same zone. It's a thin zone. It is a layer of you. A lot of us understand the idea of an aura, but we don't understand that there are many layers. The aura is a layer that's in between the second and third chakra. That's some technical stuff. And but you have other layers. You have the physical layer. That's who you think you are. You're not. That's a layer. You have the emotional layer. You have the intellectual layer. You have the layer of the heart. A lot of people do understand that. And then we move until we get outside to a very thin layer. That's where the seeds of karma are. And that's where things sprout, or some of them are positive and we want to learn them and we want to embrace them in this lifetime. Others are challenges. I bake my own bread, and I don't wear, asbestos gloves or anything. I just use a couple pot holders with I'm not that fancy. And do I still burn myself? Yep. I did yesterday. That's what's called a samskara. That is a lesson. That is a seed of karma that I still haven't gotten. Maybe one day I'll get those gloves, and then it doesn't matter if I hit the edge of the oven or not. But that's just an example of how we keep stepping into the same stuff over and over again. We do this emotionally. That's what I want you to metaphorically understand.
Okay. So it's not like our fit. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like that is, I don't think, I mean, if I'm looking back on my experience, I think I got that later in life, which is fine. I was,
About emotions?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
It,
the,
yeah. A lot is familial, Lauren.
yeah.
We learn from our parents. We learn how they behave, how they react. You ever catch yourself saying something one of your parents or the elders that raised you said?
Yeah.
All the time, right?
Yeah, I was all the time, and I was like, I don't like that. And then I think for me, you said this earlier in our conversation um, about I focused so much on what I didn't want that that's actually what I got.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So when you said that your teacher helped you, and I'm like, oh my God, that's literally like now. I get it. I understand it. It's what I do now because I focus so much on what I didn't want that that's what I became. Like that's who I became. That's what I became. That's what happened. That's the patterns that I kept So then I was like, wait a second. If I switch this, if I focus more on like what the positive and what I want, I'm like, and it, to be honest, you said it, it is easy because it is easy for me to do that. Or I'm sure a lot of people are going to be listening to this saying, no, it's not.
Well, it depends.
Yeah,
It really depends. And you had an aha moment.
yeah, yeah.
That's when the light flips on.
Yeah,
You see, people talk about enlightenment, right?
yeah,
Awakening.
yeah,
Let's look at this for a moment. When enlightenment, flipping the light on, awakening, opening your eyes, right?
yeah,
That's how, because if you're sleeping, usually your eyes are shut. And those are flash moments. When we can sustain it, then you're in that state. But that thins the herd down. We all have those moments, those flash moments of I get it, but then being able to sustain it through any experience, that's the difference of what we would deem an enlightened being. So an example that the philosophy I had mentioned, I come from Advaita Vedanta. That is the most difficult path to understand. And I get it, but I'm going to let you in on it. Advaita Vedanta, we are not the body, we are not the mind, we are the witness of the body and the mind. Not
mm,
so easy if you're in physical pain, or going through something really emotionally heavy. But let's look at it this way. When we flip the light on, which is knowledge. Remember, I said knowledge is the light. Say you're walking across the room, there's something on the floor, a belt or a yoga strap or a piece of rope, and you startle. You think it's a snake. You flip the light on, you see what it really is, right?
right.
That is a beautiful way to describe it, not so easy to grasp and own. Not so easy to practice. Do I still startle? I walk in nature a lot and I'll see a piece of a branch, or I live where there's palm trees. So palm fronds, when they're dry, they can look very interesting. And and I can easily jump and startle. And then I laugh at myself, and I say to myself, snake or a rope, and that helps. Another is the misconception of connection. I think that's the other. So that was a very small little explanation of flipping the light on. You with me so far?
Yes. Yeah, no, I like the way that you described enlightenment. Somebody just asked me, what do you think enlightenment is, Lauren? And I'm like, I'm going to send them this podcast. And I'm going to tell you, this is what she described exactly what enlightenment is versus awakening, because I
Well, it's
think
got
that,
the word light in it. Come on.
yeah,
Use a little etymology on it.
yeah, like I'm just like enlightenment to me.
Embracing light, right?
Yeah. So
But
I'm
I
like,
think people think of it as like glowing orb. You are. You are a glowing egg uh of light. That's a whole different conversation. Maybe I can come back
yeah,
and dissect the anatomy of a soul for you. But today we're just going to stick with this. Now, another way of looking at it is that disconnection. We think that these internet communities are bringing us closer, yet why do I feel so lonely?
right.
Right? So let's use the idea of the sun and a bunch of buckets of water. Okay?
Mhm.
So if I have a bunch of buckets of water on the ground, the sun's out, I can look in the buckets and each bucket has a sun. It's a reflection, right?
Right.
If I throw the water out, does the sun go away? No, there's only one. This is a little bit more abstract to try and understand us, that we're all interconnected. I love Cicero's quote, everything is alive, everything is interconnected. Not so easy when our friends are, posting anger and frustration about whatever's going on in society, or somebody's posting something on social media about something great that happened, and then you're not feeling so great about yourself, right?
Right.
But what if we can embrace that it's all the same thing? It is challenging. I'm not saying it's easy, but the more we practice, and that's why meditation and all these other holistic things uh, are practices, is because we're not masters. We're ongoing students.
Right. Yeah.
Which brings me to another one of my favorite quotes is when we stop living, I mean, when we stop learning, we stop living. So
Yeah.
the more knowledge you can take in, remember, knowledge is the light. There you go.
Right. Yeah. That's very powerful. I feel like that needs a moment of silence for people to be like, wow, it makes so much sense.
I apologize if I went too fast.
No, no, that's okay. I feel like people can, if they're listening, they can stop it and they can or rewind and go back and listen to what she just said. I think that that is very powerful. Now, before we wrap up, can you tell us one of the one of your big misconceptions when it has to do with either meditation, astrology, the
Oh,
students
yeah. I
taught?
love that.
Yeah,
Okay, let's meditation I already demystified. It's not a destination,
right,
it's a state of being. Astrology is not a fate line. It is a map of potential. Karma, I'm going to throw that one in for you too. So I think that one gets misconceived all the time.
oh yeah, everybody talks about karma.
Karma is a funny thing. Karma is making good choices. So we're given a challenge. We have the opportunity to think about it, observe it, disconnect from it, and then we have to make a choice. That's being human. So I mentioned karmic seeds before, floating around in the Anandamaya kosha, that thin bliss layer. Yep, it's called bliss. And in English, uh, anything could cause one to sprout. And then we have to make choices. And then every choice is an action. So the word karma means action. That's what it means. So every time you make a choice, you create another fruit that goes to seed that makes more karmic seeds. There's three main types of karma. One is the storehouse of all the karma, all the seeds. I get a visual of a silo on a farm filled with seeds. That's all my karma, all my stuff I've gathered over all the lifetimes. Then there's agame karma. That's what we call instant karma. I do something, something happens. Sometimes spontaneously. You know, I don't wear the proper mitts. I burn myself on this side of the oven, or I don't hold the pot holder right, and I get my finger, on my Dutch oven. Um, I don't do it every time, just so you know, everybody. I have baked bread unscathed. And then there's Prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma is your little pouch of magic seeds. Not that many. That's the ones when you won the lottery to get a human lifetime and rent a womb for 9 months. That womb came up for rent, and thousands of other souls could have grabbed it. They all had the same dance card as you. They could have benefited from the family, the lineage, the behavior, the traditions, where they are, what that could potentially put you in the path of. Stay with me for a moment. And you won because you lucked out. There's really no other way to say it. Now look at me. I landed in a family that they weren't vegetarian. They weren't practicing any kind of tradition that had meditation involved with it. Although I do think that any time a religious organization says, let's pray, that's what they're doing.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
putting a positive focus and sending positive energy, and maybe they drift off, or maybe they fall asleep. You've seen it.
Yeah.
And that shows that fine line again. But I landed in this family, and because of circumstances that happened, I ended up getting taken to, well, I was put in a Quaker school when I was a little kid.
Right.
They sat still for an hour every Wednesday morning. I sat still with first graders to sixth graders for an hour every Wednesday morning. Every Tuesday morning, we all got together and sang. Huh, interesting. Not that far off from, most of the spiritual groups like to do some kind of sound or singing or chanting. And then we were sitting silently. How interesting. And then when I was 9, I got taken to a yoga class. I have certifications in from 6 different programs, too, or lineages, uh, very long lineages that actually converge and go back to the same one if you go back far enough in history. And and then a master's degree in yoga. I mean, come on. Like I was given that opportunity when I was 9 years old. I was obsessed with an artist named Peter Max. My mother took me to an art opening that he had, and there I met his teacher, Swami Vishnudevananda. I was about 8 years old. And later, I studied at Shivananda Ashram, which was the ashram that he brought to the Bahamas. Later, I moved to Florida nearby so I could get over there easily. And then I went there and taught last year. So, look at that progression. Why? Why that happened to me? That wasn't luck. I made certain choices all along the way. I could have said, no, I don't like this to my mom when she took me to yoga class for the first time, but I loved it. When I was in Shavasana for the first time, I felt like I was floating in the cosmos, and I was like, man, I want to come back and do this again.
Yeah.
Can I come next week? And then as soon as I could become a yoga teacher, I wanted to do that. And then I went on and studied with more schools because I really love the philosophy. Then I got a master's degree in it. Then I've been working for 13 years on a PhD about meditation and launching into it easily, quickly, and why the voice and choice is so much a part of it. So you can see that was a nutshell of my progression, and astrology is part of it. I mean, the master teacher that I have, that I was my advisor and also professor in a couple of the topics when I was getting my master's degree. He then started his own university, and I've been working on this PhD. I published a paper on the voice as medicine using neuroscience and Advaita Vedanta philosophy. I mean, that's some heavy stuff. Find me some experts that can talk about both of those. Not that many.
I was gonna say I don't know any of them. Besides you, you're the first one I've ever met. Yeah.
That's why Mind Tamer. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell all the listeners where they can find you, and I'll also make sure that everything that you talked about today is also in the show notes, or if you're watching this over on YouTube.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, the best way to get in touch with me if you're not watching us on YouTube is my website. I'll spell it out for you: AmbikaDevi.com. AmbikaDevi.com. It'll be in the show notes. Go there, read my blog, book a strategy call with me, a new student or new client call with me. I instantly give you that back when you decide to continue on with me. I do charge a minimum amount for that half hour, but I give it back to you as a discount when you decide to either purchase a package of sessions with me. You can bring me to your location, either virtually or in person, as a speaker. I love to teach, and I love to watch people begin to get this. So again, it's at ambikadevi.com. Definitely check out my blog. You'll find some info on the voice. You'll find an introduction to both my holistic health philosophy and also astrology. So let's go. Let's enlighten with knowledge.
Yes, I love that. I love this conversation. And if you also love this conversation, make sure if you're listening to this, that you're sharing this episode with somebody that you feel that would gain knowledge from listening. Again, make sure you go and check out all the links that she talked about in the show notes, or if you're watching this over on YouTube, they're below in the description box. And I also wanted to invite you into my Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood. It's a community for spiritual entrepreneurs rising in their purpose, re-identifying their identity, and creating impact through their gifts. You can connect with me on the Mermaid Light on all social medias, or those links below are also below in the show notes or over on YouTube in the description box. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation and this community. And thank you for choosing you. I will see you next week. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week.
If today's episode spoke to you and you're ready to rise with support, I'd love to invite you in to the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood, a sacred community for spiritual entrepreneurs to heal, grow, and lead with purpose. You can join us by using the link below in the show notes or connecting with me over on Facebook or Instagram at The Mermaid Light. If you loved today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave a review. This helps support us reach more women who are ready to rise. Remember, your journey isn't about fitting in. It's about embracing the truth of who you are. Until next time, stay inspired, stay aligned, and keep creating your extraordinary path. This is Lauren, and you've been listening to the Enlightened Misfits podcast.